Hey there, neighbors and naysayers. August 30th, 2025. We're looking at the last section of tall grass grazing for 2025 for us here. I've done this multiple different ways for multiple different years. For a couple years, I tried to get through all the tall grass before or around the longest day of the year, and a couple years I just kind of let it roll, and we got through it when we got through it. And I think I kind of found that I'd rather just let it go. The theory for getting through it before the longest day of the year, or around the longest day of the year, is because I was missing growing days on the forage. Because it was tall and mature, we were missing a bunch of growing days, and maybe we were missing yield because of it. And I still think that's true to an extent. But what I found was I really got more grazing days, letting the tall grass just be and go as long as I could. And I can't really explain it, but it's just the way that it has worked out for me for the most part. I could never make them go fast enough and trample enough to get through it by the 4th of July. And then a lot of times I was stuck. And I've even kicked around the theory here lately of mowing a portion of it to get it back in condition and grow better grass earlier when it's actually growing. But I think so. My other side of this theory, where I did what I did this year and just let it be, is, here we are, August 31st. We're getting toward the end of the summer slump typically, and now we can grow good grass again. But this is all overshadowed this morning by, this is the last piece of tall grass. I've got, probably 3 or 4 days of decent grazing left that I can think of. It depends on how I piece it all together. Maybe a week of decent grazing, depending on how I piece it all together. And then after that, things get pretty scary. We got a little bit of rain here and there, really wet dew in the morning, but just no rain. The La Nina weather effect here is a drought or dry effect. And so unfortunately I had a really busy week, and I left this decision till this morning and tomorrow, or today and tomorrow. What do we do next? I calculated last night, I have about 30 days, probably 40 days of grazing left. And that doesn't make me feel very comfortable, because are we going to get rain, and are we going to get growth? And then the next thing is, do we just put them on hay? Is it going to grow back fast enough to meet their need? It's kind of like spring. You're just going out there and trusting that it's going to be enough. And is it or isn't it? I couldn't tell you. I was thinking on the way up here with the four-wheeler, I'm not really good at writing things down. I'm not good at mapping. I'm not good at records. But boy, it would be really nice from a breeding perspective, and from a hog raiser perspective. I would love to know what our average pounds of growing, or percent of yield growing per day is. If we could put together some kind of calendar that would show, on an average year, your forage, and it doesn't matter per yield, your forage grows 0.05% per day or something like that in the spring, and then goes down to 0.025% during the summer slump, and goes back up to 0.03% during the fall bump. That would be good information to have, just because then I could kind of gauge where I was going to be and how I was going to do it. So it's something I got to work on and see if I can come up with something. But I just don't know. I don't know what to do. I guess stay tuned. We'll see what we do. At this point, we would typically be working to put sheep and cows and everybody together, and that's what we may do, and that saves us some forage right off the bat. And then after that, I don't know. The problem is, do you put them all together to find out in a week? You got to pull them all back apart and put them on hay, and that may be what we do. The only good thing about that plan is, if you do that, then you pull off the cows and feed them hay, you pull off the ewes and feed them hay, and you put the growing steers hopefully back on grass and finish growing them on grass. Hopefully that's enough. It's not like last year where it's totally dry and totally not growing anything, so there would be some. So that may be the option too. I don't know. We got to treat sheep this morning, and then we'll discuss that as we're treating. So a real other problem is we're still making hay, and trying to think about feeding hay while you're still making hay is not a great theory. And my dad has that same old farmer mentality. Well, just turn them out there and let them pick. Well, you just don't. That's so short-sighted. You don't realize how much you're hurting things and how much you're not going to get growth for the fall if you ruin it now. And I just can't get to a point where I can ruin it. And the other thing, if I have advice for folks, I have a lot of pastures that, almost all the pastures, don't have great electric fence around them because we're grazing green grass. It doesn't matter. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to stay in. But those paddocks aren't in good enough condition to force them to stay there and feed hay. So I have to do some fence fixing, some electric fixing, some refurbishing every time I think about feeding hay, because I have to make sure that they're going to stay locked on to a place to feed hay, which is work. I mean, that's a couple hours, if not a day, worth of work to do that. So I'm reluctant to do that until I absolutely have to. I could put them on the pad. We talked about that this week at Grazing Council, but I don't like to put them on the pad when it's dry. I like to just find an area we can't feed hay on and feed hay on it then in the summer. We can't feed hay on in the winter, feed hay on it in the summer, because I can't get it spread on there. I can't feed on it in the winter. And if they're not on the heavy use pad, then I'm not cleaning it up and having to spread it later. I hate to spread manure. I like to have manure to spread, but I hate to spread manure. That's days of being on the tractor that I don't want to do. So praying for rain. If you got an extra one, pray for me, because this is a very stressful time for us to think about, what is the next step. So often summers just roll and you just do what you got to do, and then when you got to make the hard decisions, it sucks. And I think I said in another video, I keep saying, am I overstocked? And the answer is no, I'm under-rained. Like, by all calculations, we're understocked. We're just also under-rained too, and that's difficult. So there'll be a lot of calculating in my mind today and trying to figure out what exactly we're going to do. Well, that'll say, we'll see you next time.